Carolyn Conrad from Canyon Country, California, family law corruption and judicial misconduct. Okay, first of all, there was no accountability in my case whatsoever. Files were lost. OSCs that were filed were never heard in the courtroom. They were buried. Evidence was buried and suppressed. And it seemed to be very biased into one direction. And it seemed to me that every hearing that I went to was in chambers. And then they came out and said, this is what we're ruling. So I never got to say, I never got to be heard. And my children's voices were never heard. Their requests were never honored. So I do believe there was a lot of mishandling in the evidence, and that there were communications between the judge and the attorneys and the therapist of the case where things were determined over the telephone. I lost custody of my daughter over the telephone while I was on vacation, and then they told me that by the U.S. mail in a letter that I just no longer had custody of my daughter anymore, and I was forced to hire an attorney and get caught into the system. So I do believe there's no accountability whatsoever. There's nobody you can complain to. There were no custody police. When I said my visits aren't happening, they just were like, too bad. When I said I don't get phone calls, nobody cared. There was no one to enforce what visitation that I did have. It was basically left up to the other parent, who would rather me be gone completely. So he had no motivation to make sure I saw my children. So I think there should be recorders in the courtroom where everything that happens is recorded, and there should be everything on the transcripts are archaic because I never got a transcript that was accurate. And I just think that it just needs a total overhaul. There's just no accountability, and there's no ethics involved. Everything that could go wrong with my case went wrong from the very first day. I was completely taken advantage of, and that shouldn't happen. Every person should have their day in court where at least both sides are heard, and then a fair decision be made, and that never happened. Okay, the reason I went to family court was because of this picture my son had drawn, and I found in his notebook. And he clearly was having a lot of difficulty living at his father's house. He is being weighted down by the weight of the world, thousands of tons on his head. He has a gun at his head, a knife, a pitchfork. He's chained and bound and tied down to the ground by thousands of tons. And he's definitely chained. And the tower of fire of Inferno is right over here. And the caption reads, "Dad, let me go." He begged to live with me, and that never happened. I also have drawings he made of children with blood coming down their face, and he said this was a bully. And he had also drawn this one. He wrote letters where he said that he feels that his dad calls the cops for no reasons. He tells people I'm suicidal and I'm a bad person, just so I would either kill myself or go to prison or anything to get rid of me. He is a convincing and smart criminal. He tries to make it look like me and my mom are crazy. I hate his guts. He hates me for being who I am and tries to make me something I'm not, like change my clothes or make me. He's manipulative and convinces everyone I feel like I'm running on empty and I just have to fight for my life. He makes it so only his voice is heard. He isn't my father. I feel he's an evil man from hell. And then he signed his name. He also left a letter after he cut himself. And he said, "Dear people who I love and hate, I'm sorry that you have to go through this, and everyone else. I love you, Mom." Can I say a swear word? "I fucking hate your guts, Dad, and I leave my blood on your hands. I love you, Sarah," that's his sister. "I love all of my friends, and please don't do anything on my behalf. I love you all, and Dad, burn in hell. I don't want him at my funeral." And he says, "And Sarah, love you, Mom. Thanks for the help." Then he drew a picture. He's suspended. Again, he's always changed his barbed wire. He has no face. Here he's all chained up. He smiles because he's afraid. Here's pictures of his Christmas cards. And here's he's being tortured. His heart's being pulled in many directions, and he's in fire. He's chained to the wall. This one, he says, "It's me." He told me he slept with one eye open because he was afraid if he fell asleep, his father would kill him, and therefore he would not wake up. And then he says, "Don't touch me." And then we have letters from the principal, the school teachers, different people in the community, all asking the judge to reverse and remove the custody. And to no avail. And let's see what else. I have pictures. I have the Girl Scout troop. I'll take the number out. My daughter and I were in. This is all of the badges that we earned. She earned when we were on the troop, and when she was a brownie. These are all of the badges and all of the activities that we went on. We also had jackets. So the Girl Scout troop was taken away from me first because they said I couldn't be in the same room as my daughter. And that was that. And 6 years of Girl Scouts, no more. I also coached soccer for many, many years. And when you're a coach, you get the T-shirt and you get the pin for being the coach. But you can also order pictures of your kids that come on these buttons. So every year I would wear these to work. And I always had current pictures of my children. And then I also have an article from the evaluator that took my kids away, and it says custody expert under scrutiny, and it describes in great detail how he extorted money from families at a very high price. And then there were these photos that came that I actually have to share with you. And this is from the LA Times Sunday newspaper, February of 2010. So let me show you. Oh, sorry. Okay. This is the evaluation that he had done. It's 300 pages long, and they keep referring to this as if I had done so much wrong to deserve having lost my kids. But in actuality, it says over and over how much my son loved me and wanted to live with me, and how my daughter didn't want anything to change in her family. And it is sort of like a time capsule of what was really happening at the time, which I will use hopefully to prove to my children that they did nothing to deserve this, and I did nothing to deserve this. They're a victim of the court system because they kept thinking that I must have done something to deserve this. Okay, this is the doctor that took my kids away from me. And here he brags about being in the dysfunctional family, and I guess he's friends with porn stars, and he was into pornography and drugs. And I have some pictures in here of him having parties in Palm Springs where I guess the cocaine fell freely. This is a lovely picture of him and his maybe boyfriend having a birthday celebration. These are all posted on his Facebook page. Here's a picture of him in Westwood on a city street with no pants on. That's one of my personal favorites. And then here he is. He's going to have a party, and he's inviting everyone for, I don't know if I should say sex with strangers afterwards. So that means that people could probably catch AIDS and die from going to one of his parties. He was also, there were 2 dead bodies found at his house, I believe, that had OD'd there. He wasn't charged with any crime or anything, but I guess he had some pretty nice parties. And then all of these exhibits, this is some of his friends, I guess from San Francisco, some porn stars. And, this is coming up, sorry, I got messed up. He's dressed in S&M attire. And then I have another one of him relaxing here's him in commando style. This is the guy that took away my children. And one of his friends with a straw for cocaine in his nose. And this says, the people, it's snowing here, and I believe that is referring to cocaine. This is one of their parties in Palm Springs. There's one more, picture that I really wanted to show. All right, this is Dr. Joseph Keenan at home relaxing. This medical doctor had 6 complaints to the medical board that I can know of at this time, asking for his medical license to be removed, that he should not be in charge of deciding what to do with children and shouldn't be anywhere near children. And I heard he's still in family law, maybe not doing evaluations. His name was removed from the LA Superior Court list, but I do believe that he's still behind the scenes working and continuing to destroy families.
And he's the one where
he removed my children. Yeah. So, I don't know, are we still on?
Yeah, but I can cut it.
Oh, okay, good. This is what I received in the mail, and it is a notification of my losing custody of my daughter. I received it in the mail, and it was a telephone hearing between the judge, the therapist, Dr. Joseph Keenan, and Lisa Hacker, and they determined that I was to have my daughter removed from my care, and that we would have a court hearing to determine what to do with my daughter, and she was never ever returned to me. And this was March 16th of 2007. They never gave her back. This is the monitored visitation reports by the professional monitors. And each report has a 3-page report, and it says description of actions taken by the monitor, interruptions or termination of visit, or reasons, none. A description of any critical incidents, physical or verbal altercations or threats, none. Description of any violations of protective or court visitation orders, none. Every page in here says the same thing, that nothing ever happened on any of the visits, but yet when you're supposed to go for maybe 10 visits and get an evaluation about whether or not the monitors should stay in place, they never, ever, ever let me be removed from monitored visitation. And in fact, they did let me go from professional monitors to friends and family as monitors, and my ex appointed his stepchildren to be my monitors. So I had a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old monitor with me monitoring, and they still made me pay for those visits. I had to pay $15 an hour to the children, and I had to pay $225 a visit, and spent $12,000 for professional monitor visitation till I said I could no longer afford to be with the professional monitors. Anyways, that was that. Okay, this is a chambers hearing for my daughter, and it was determined at 17 and a half years old she was old enough to not see her mother if she chose not to. By this time, my daughter had been so alienated from me that I'm not surprised that this happened. And on her own, let me see. at her own discretion. So if she calls me and says we can get together, then we can get together. And in a year's time, the only day she called me was Mother's Day for 2 hours and my birthday for 1 hour lunch. And that was the only time in the past year that I've seen my daughter, because apparently all the other days of the year, it just hasn't been necessary for her to feel the need to call me, because she believes that I did something so horrible to her brother that we don't need to have a relationship anymore. And prior to that, I showed you the Girl Scout troop that we did and the soccer teams we were on, and we had birthday parties every year, and I was a really good mom. And so it's just heartbreaking that I have no relationship with this child. And then here's my, okay, I guess for a minute I have to organize my paper, sorry.
What is it supposedly you did to your son?
Oh, here it is.
That your daughter says you did to your son?
Well, see, what they do is they accuse you of something, then they seal it in a file, and it takes 5 years and 3 attorneys later. You have to like lose your attorney before they disclose any part of the file, and you get bits and pieces of it. And it actually took 5 years for me to find out what it was that I was accused of. And what I was accused of was slashing my son with razor blades and trying to drown him. Yeah, they couldn't find something more believable. In actuality, I have all the proof that the drowning happened on Dad's family vacation in Myrtle Beach, and that the razor blade incident happened in Dad's own home, and when the DCF worker was in the house. And I have proof. I have all the documentation. I have all the proof that everything I said, my side of the story, I have doctor's reports, police reports, I have the 730 evaluation, and I have all of the documentation to prove that what I'm saying is true and accurate, and that I did nothing wrong to deserve for this to happen, and except for to report the abuse. And reporting abuse apparently was reason enough to reverse the custody, and I was accused of demonizing Dad because I brought up allegations of abuse. Okay.
You're on?
I went to family court
Oh,
to.
wait, I'm sorry. This is
Okay.
30 seconds.
I went to family court to have a change in modification of custody for my son, and instead what happened was beyond my wildest dreams. I am devastated on all levels. I have no relationship with either one of my children. I have been financially devastated, and I have been on supervised visitation like I was a criminal for the entire 5 years, and I am paying child support to 2 children I'm not allowed to see or talk to. And I will be paying child support till my kids are in their 30s, because I've been incurred charges for court-ordered fees that will take me years and years to pay. So my trip to family court has cost me absolutely everything, and especially my children's lives and the relationship with them.
Either I'm moving or you are. Hang on.
Okay, I'm probably moving.
All right.
Is that better? Because it is kind of shaking.
That's getting the glare on it.
Okay.
Hold it right up, kind of rest it.
Like that?
To your chest.
Okay.
You getting a glare?
Yeah, tilt it forward, the top forward. Oh, that's perfect. Now let me lock the camera so that.
Okay. When my son was really little, he was always interested in movies and theater, and his only toys were costumes and props. And he would dress up and he would learn the dialogues of movies and plays, and sing and dance and do all sorts of theatrical things. And he wasn't really sports minded, and he wasn't all that interested in that sort of thing. And when he was 10 years old, he came to me and said that he wanted to live with me full time. And I said when he was a little bit older, maybe we'd have a chance with the courts, because I had heard that kids had to be 12. So when he approached his 12th birthday, he said, okay, Mom, you know, I'm 12 now. Can we go to court and can we change it? And so we asked his father if he could live with me full time. And Dad sort of agreed at the time. And he had 2 months with me where he said it was heaven on earth. And at the end of the 2 months, either someone had talked to Dad or scared him and said that he shouldn't give me full custody, that I was just going after him for child support. And I have documentation that said that we didn't want child support, we didn't want any help. He just wanted to stay at one house all the time, and he had chose my house. Apparently, when he decided he wanted to live with me, it caused a lot of problem with his father, and that's when things started happening at Dad's house. And my son came to me, and he was very, very concerned about what was happening over there, and begged and asked for me to go to the courts and to get the custody switched. And I had asked Christopher to write me a letter, and or to write down why he wanted to live with me. But it actually turned out to be more why he didn't want to live with his father. And the letter says, the reasons he wants to live with Mom is he hates his dad so much. He wishes he was dead, that he tried to drown himself while he was at Myrtle Beach. The last time he was there, he doesn't want to go on there for vacation anymore. If his dad thinks he's going to win anything, he's wrong. He will not get anything from me. He has made my life a stupid wreck. He scarred my life, and I will hate him even after I die. I wish I wasn't born. He treats my sister like a princess while I'm being punished all the time. He invades my privacy, and I cry every night because of him. I'm not allowed to have her use a phone. I must be constantly checked on. I'm not allowed to see my friends. He tells my mom she's going to lose in court. He calls the sheriff on my mom because I want to live with her. He doesn't believe I hate him. He doesn't believe anything I say. He always tells the bad things about me to my therapist, never the good. He makes my sister hate me too. He lies, and he never tells the truth. He forgets to tell my mom the important things on purpose. He throws away some of my clothes and threatens to burn them, even if he didn't buy them. Tells bad things to Grandma and Grandpa and my cousins so that they can hate me. Makes me feel powerless, destroyed, sad, and angry, and I have to hold it in every day. I feel like I shouldn't be alive. If it weren't for my mom and my friends, I wouldn't be here. I wish he would drop dead so I could never have to see him again. He didn't care what happened to my friend Amanda. She passed away. She was 12 years old. I tried to cut myself with the razor I found at Dad's house to see if I could die, and Dad didn't even care. He blames my mom for everything, especially when it's his fault. He doesn't let me talk to my mom unless he's listening in. He has to have all the control. His stepmom and sister have no idea how bad he treats me. I'm afraid to eat his food because I'm afraid he'll put some poison in it. One time I got so sick I couldn't get up. It hurt so bad. He didn't care when my friend Amanda died. He treats my stuff like it's his. I'm not allowed to see my friends at his house. The sound of his voice makes me vomit. I can't sleep at his house at all. I don't want to be near him. I feel like I'll die. And that's why I went to court.
When was that written?
This is Friday, July 7th, 2006.
And how old was he at the time?
He has to be about 13. He was born in 1993. So there are reasons behind all this anger and animosity with his father that I chose not to disclose because of privacy reasons for my son and for legal reasons, as we're still in litigation on other issues. So needless to say, the court didn't believe my son's version of the story, didn't listen to him at all, and then accused me of telling my son to write this. So.
What purpose was that written? Was it just to tell you, or was it a letter to someone? Or?
Well, I knew we were going to file for a change, modification of custody, and I knew that they were going to want some reasons why my son wanted to live with me more. And I had simply asked him to put in writing, what are some of the reasons why you want to live with me, because they're going to want to know that. And the person preparing the papers would probably, include that into the declaration. And so this is what he wrote. And then I coupled that with the drawings that I had found in his school notebooks, and that became our OSC. But that was immediately, it was never heard in court, and they immediately sort of suppressed that evidence. And it just right away, they just kind of flipped everything on my son and I. The therapist said our story wasn't believable and that we made it up, and I was trying to get advantage in court on custody, and we had 50-50 custody for 10 years. I already had my kids. There was no reason for me to go back to court except for my son wanted to live with me more. And under the circumstances of what was happening at the time, I was going to protect my son. I went to protect him, not to get any kind of advantage.
The evaluator?
Yes.
What was the evaluator's name?
Dr. Joseph Keenan.
Is he a medical doctor?
Yes, he is. He had a vitae that was 16 pages long. He looks really good on paper, and he had a Beverly Hills address. I went to my parent evaluation in Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and when he came to the home visit, he was riding in a red Ferrari, and he seemed kind of angered at me that he had to park it on the street. So yeah, he was a very colorful person.
All right, so he wrote a 300 and some odd page report.
Yes, he did.
Which,
It's right here.
and what's the bottom line to the report?
Oh yes. Well, what I'm accused of is alienating the affections of my children from their father in my parenting style. That's what I'm accused of. That I somehow have taught my children to hate their father and not to want to have a relationship with them. But what's good about this is the interviews, the collateral interviews with the children, and they clearly state that they love their mom, they love their dad, and they didn't want to have to make a choice. They love both their parents. And my son just wanted to live with me more. He didn't feel safe at Dad's house.
So your son lied to the evaluator?
No, my son said what he really felt, but because my son wanted to live with me full time, they took that as alienation. So in other words, if he wants to live with mom all the time, then mom is guilty of making that happen.
Well, how does he love his dad if he writes that letter saying he hates him?
Exactly.
So he lied to the evaluator, or the evaluator lied about what he said?
The evaluator didn't take anything of that letter seriously, or the pictures or the drawings. In fact, he got annoyed with me and said, "No more, I don't want to look at any more drawings." And that didn't appear in the report, anywhere in the report. The letter or the pictures are not in this report.
Was the evaluator aware of the matters you can't discuss due to privacy and litigation?
Yes, he's very clear on what was going on with the family dynamics. In fact, it's a lot of this report is on those matters, which is, like I said, because of privacy for my son. I'd rather not speak about that, but.
Okay. Do you think that it's possible that there was an ulterior motive on the part of the evaluator?
I believe that the court people were all lined up in cahoots and had already made a decision ahead of time who was going to get custody. And when the report was done, it was like he was looking for information to put on paper, like where do what do you do? Who are your friends? What do you guys do for free time, whatever? And he was just looking for things to put into the report. But you could tell that he had already made up his mind. And he saw Dad first for the interview and me second. And you could tell by the questioning and how he phrased things that his mind was already made up. And in fact, somewhere in this report he said, would I accept having more time with my son if I gave my daughter to my ex? And I said, well, no, because my daughter wants to keep everything the same. This is not about splitting my children in half. This is about just my son wants to be with me more, leave my daughter's custody the same. And I also felt that was a trick question, because it was like saying, you love one child more than the other. And that's not true. I love both my children. And so I want what's best for both of them. And what's best for both my children is to be loved by both of their parents.
Who was the judge? Friegenthaler?
Alan Friedenthal.
Alan Friedenthal.
Commissioner Alan Friedenthal.
So he's not even a judge.
He was a commissioner. He was in San Fernando Family Court from 2006 till 2008, and he was removed from family law and admonished, publicly and professionally admonished, for his rulings in family court in that time frame, although his decisions were not reversed.
Does he work in traffic court now?
Not really sure.
I think he does maybe something like along those lines.
He did for a while. I've lost track.
He works on the 405?
Probably. He's doing the Carmageddon right now.
Yeah.
Who's the biological father's attorney?
Kenneth Schwartz of Cohen and Schwartz in Sherman Oaks, I believe.
Okay. And does Mr. Schwartz have a reputation in the family courts?
I believe Cohen and Schwartz had a reputation as being pretty much pro-fathers. I mean, they got it. They were able to get custody swayed in the directions of their clients, but most of their clients, I think, were predominantly male.
Have you tried to reach people who were up against Cohen and Schwartz, or who appeared before Friedenthaler, or who had this pervert as an evaluator?
Yes, we actually had a meeting. There were 14, I believe, women that got together that had Dr. Keenan as the evaluator, and the person that organized it believed that she had many more names. She would actually be a better person to talk to about it. They were very interested in what his decisions were. He mostly hated women. He always gave us all the same recommendations, which was 4 hours supervised twice a month. And so we were all on 8 hours a month visitation with our child, and we had to be monitored. And none of us were successful in the courts in having that reversed, changed, or getting more time with our children. We pretty much all were stuck with the same decision. And he was so highly respected by all the court people that what he said went, and nobody questioned it.
Okay. He's obviously gay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't like women.
Yes, although he has not always ruled. It's the person with the most money, I think, actually won the case. So it wasn't a gender issue. But I did hear that there were a couple suicides on his decision, where parents that could not handle what the ruling was actually committed suicide over his decision.
Give us a soundbite, if you will, of
Okay, I was very alarmed when my son had some drawings in his school notebooks, and we had a discussion about it, and he confided in me that things weren't going so great at Dad's house, and that some things that were happening over there were very alarming. And before that, he had just been such a great, happy kid, and so well loved by his fellow students, and he was in plays, and he was playing soccer, and he was just such an active boy. And when this caught my attention, and I went to family court to try to help him, and just get some of the custody exchanged so that he could feel safe. He said he felt safe at my house. The court's response to our request was to remove custody from me completely, 100%, and to give custody to his named abuser, his father. And his father immediately had him sent off to these deprogramming camps. He went to Georgia, Idaho, and Utah. And by the time he returned back from these camps, his whole personality had changed to me. He seemed more docile, more quiet. He told me he was having trouble learning math. He wasn't getting the pathways. And I was really, really concerned for his mental state. And so I did some research on what happens in these deprogramming camps. And I found that what they're trying to do is to groom this child to live with the opposite parent that they have been afraid of and didn't want to. And they have used drugs, and they have used electric shock therapy, and they have done all these different things to get this child to consent. And I've heard of protein deprivation, and I'm not really sure all of what or any of those things that were used on my son, but I could see that he was very changed. He had his whole persona, his whole personality, his whole demeanor, everything changed when he came back. And I was very, very concerned for him the entire time he was gone, and then when he returned, because I wasn't allowed to talk to him, to see him, to be involved in family therapy. I had 6 monitored phone calls in the entire year that he was gone. Okay, I just want to say to my children that I never agreed to be, or I never needed to be monitored, but I agreed because it was the only way I would have contact with you at all. And that I was accused of outrageous things that never happened. The court documents were sealed, and then it took years and years to even find out what I was accused of. Way too late to even defend myself. Every time I went to court, I lost more. They wanted me to have therapy with you guys, and the purpose of the therapy was to continue to keep us separated. If I was such a horrible mom, then why was there never an investigation? Where's the proof of anything that I'm accused of? In an exact opposite, I have proof that none of it happened. I have all the police reports, the documentation, and the hospital reports, and I have all the proof that it didn't happen. And I would love to show to you both, anytime you want to know the truth, I would be happy to show you the truth. And I just want you to know that the courts have failed you completely, absolutely have failed you completely, and that I was forced to cooperate if I wanted a relationship with either of you at all. I just tried so hard to make things right and to put things back together the way they were. And I want you to know that I kept your bedrooms up for the day and wanted so badly for you to come home and sleep in your beds. And that I hung up decorations for every holiday in your honor. And I just want you to know that behind the scenes, when I found out you were in a concert, a play, or a sporting event, I was in the audience. I was watching. And I'm so, so proud of you both. You've grown up to be such wonderful, beautiful human beings. And my only wish, we can never get back those 5 years we lost, but we can move forward from here. And I would love to sit and talk to you and to tell you the truth. And I just want you to know that my whole heart loves you. My children's father's name is Randolph G. Conrad, and he would not allow me to go to my children's track meets, their choir concerts, the graduation of my son from high school, and he was very happy to send them to Indiana to be with grandparents for the summer. It started out to be 2 weeks, but then it got to be 3 weeks, then 4 weeks, and then the whole summer. And my biggest concern was not that they not have a relationship with their grandparents, but when they were gone, I was allowed no contact with them whatsoever. There was never an email, a phone call, a letter, a postcard. There was no contact whatsoever. So why should I be completely shut out of both my children's lives? And all of my family was denied any rights to be with the children. There was no visitation with my side of the family, with their aunts, their uncles, their cousins, and my grandmother, no matter how much we asked to have the kids for family reunions and such. I just think it's really wrong to completely cut a parent completely out of both their children's lives, and then to forbid them to be at any of the important events of their lives. You know, it's just wrong.